everybody, welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. I love stars, and I've loved them since I was really little. I love the shape of them, I love the way they sparkle, and I love to look at them in the night sky. So I collect stars. I have star beads and star buttons, I have star jewelry, and in fact, one of the first videos we ever did here on the show was a star applique pattern, and I'll put a link in the description box down below for that if you want to check it out later. Lately, a lot of you have pointed out this cute little star plushie pillow we have here in the craft room. I made this for myself a little while ago because I had some leftover yellow yarn, worsted weight, size 4, and I used a 4.25mm hook. I'm going to give you guys a tutorial today on how to make a star pillow, and if you want to make this cute little 9.5-inch tall plushie pillow, you can use the worsted weight size 4 yarn with the 4.25mm hook. But I thought, because I love stars so much, and my love of stars is so big that I would make a really big star pillow. So, I'm going to show you guys how I made this star pillow today. Same pattern, I'm just using a much thicker yarn and a really big hook. Also, I stuffed this one with chopped up t-shirts, 2 extra large men's t-shirts to be exact. It made it nice and firm, perfect for leaning on or snuggling, and the soft squishy yarn I used just topped it off and made it just so much fun to make. Anyway, I absolutely love this star pillow, and I can't wait to share how I made it with you guys. So let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, head on over to the craft table, and we will make up some star pillows. To make our giant stuffed stars, I'm using a super bulky yarn. It's a size 6, and I need 100 gram skeins, so 2 of them in total, 200 grams to make this star, because each side takes 100 grams. I'm using the Bernay Baby Blanket yarn today. It's big, thick, somewhat stretchy, really soft, fun to work with, and that's what I'm going to make my star out of. Since I'm using big bulky yarn, I need a big bulky hook, and this is a 10mm or US 15. This is a big hook, real doozy, so you want to find a large hook. You're going to need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle. I'm using a slightly bigger yarn needle than I normally do just because of the size of my yarn. And you're going to need some stuffing. I'm using chopped up t-shirt. You can use polyester fiber fill or socks or whatever else you might have lying around that you want to stuff your pillow with. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. We are going to make 2 of these today, these big flat stars, and we're going to sew them together. So I'm going to show you how to make one, and then you're going to make another one entirely on your own. So you need two sides for the star, and at least one of them, when you fasten off at the end, you want to leave a whole lot of extra yarn because you're going to sew both sides together with one of those hanging yarns. So either on your first one or your second one, doesn't matter. And like I said, 1 whole skein of this, so 100 grams, made this star. So you're going to need at least 2 of these. All right, let's begin. We're working with bulky yarn, so you want to sort of connect with your yarn in a way that maybe you haven't before. This does take a little bit of getting used to. We're going to start with a cinch circle. So big hook, big yarn. Start slowly if you haven't worked with this much or haven't worked with it at all, because it does take a little bit of getting used to. Once you've made your cinch circle, you're going to single crochet 5 into the circle. So big hook, big yarn equals big stitches. So be patient with yourself, especially when you're starting out with your 5 single crochets into your cinch circle, because it does feel a little funny and it does take a little bit of getting used to. Once you have 5 single crochets into your circle, and make sure you count, it does look a little different than normal because it's big and fluffy. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's 5 back here. Take your short tail, cinch it shut. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to slip your hook into the first single crochet you made, and we're going to start row 2 immediately. So try not to single crochet too tightly. We're going to single crochet 2 stitches into each stitch all the way around. So 2 single crochet into each of those 5 stitches from row 1. If you think you have trouble seeing the next stitch, just pause and feel around for it with your fingers. These stitches are really big,
So your fingers should just easily slip underneath them. So if I'm not sure, there it is. I can slip my finger right underneath it. I can see the 2 loops passing over top, so I know that that's the next stitch. So while you're working this pattern, don't speed along with it unless you feel comfortable knowing exactly where your next stitch is. So just take your time and have some fun. At the end of row 2, we're going to have 10 stitches. At the end of row 2, you'll have 10 stitches, and we're going to expand this circle for quite a while. So here we go. Row 3, we're going to work 2 single crochet into the next stitch, and remember, we're not joining our rows with a slip stitch. We are working in the round, so we're just going into the next stitch, and so on. 2 single crochets into the first stitch, 1 single crochet into the next stitch. And that's your little pattern. 2 single crochets into the next stitch, 1 single crochet into the next. Repeat that all the way around, and you'll have 15 stitches at the end of row 3. At the end of row 3, you should have 15 stitches. Take a moment to count them all up if you're not sure. You might notice that your work is starting to bubble. It's looking a little bit like the beginning of an egg or something. Don't worry, that's going to happen, but it's very stretchy, so by the time we get around to adding all the star points and sewing it together and stuffing it, it won't matter. Plus, a little bit of poofiness is okay. It's a pillow. We're into row 4 now. We're still expanding. We're going to begin with 2 single crochets into the first stitch of row 4. Oh, and I've got a knot in my yarn. Get rid of that. There we go. And 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So that's the pattern. 2 single crochets into the first stitch, single crochet into each of the next 2. Repeat that all the way around, and you'll have 20 stitches at the end of row 4. At the end of row 4, you'll have 20 stitches and a little bit of poofing. Doesn't matter. We're on to row 5. We're still expanding. We're going to work 2 single crochet into the first stitch and a single crochet into each of the next 3. And that's the pattern for row 5. 2 single crochet into the first stitch, single crochet into each of the next 3, repeat around, and you'll be at 25 stitches at the end of row 5. At the end of row 5, you'll have 25 stitches. Don't worry if it's turning into a bit of a mountain on you. It's going to straighten itself out. You can also stretch it a little bit and put it down and flatten it if you want, just so you can see that circle happening. But like I said, a little bit of poofing is okay. We're on to row 6 now. 2 single crochet into the first stitch, and then single crochet into each of the next 4. And that's the pattern. 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into each of the next 4. Repeat that all the way around, and you'll be at 30 stitches. At the end of row 6, you'll have 30 stitches. We have 2 more rows of increasing left, so bear with me. Row 7, we're going to begin with 2 single crochet into the first stitch, and then we're going to single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. So you're going to work 2 single crochet into the first stitch, single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches, repeat that all the way around, and you'll have 35 stitches at the end of row 7. At the end of row 7, you'll have 35 stitches. You can stretch it out a little bit, make it a little more circular, but don't worry about the poofing. That's going to go away when we stuff it. 1 more row of increasing. We're on row 8. We're going from 35 stitches to 40. We're going to begin with 2 single crochet in the first stitch, and then single crochet into each of the next 6. So 2 single crochet into the first stitch, single crochet into each of the next 6, and then repeat. And at the end of row 8, you'll be up to 40 stitches. And 40 is important. You want to make sure you've got 40, so double count. Alright, that's the end of row 8. You should have 40 stitches all the way around, so take a moment and count if you're not sure. And that's it for the expansion. We are going to start making our star points now. So the first thing we're going to do is just slip stitch to finish off row 40, or I should say that 40th stitch in row 8. So we're going to slip stitch to finish off. And now we're going to begin the star points. So every single star point sort of happens exactly the same way. You begin with a chain 1. You're going to work a half double crochet into the same stitch that you joined in. So we're using the half double crochet stitch now. And then half double crochet into each of the next 7 stitches across your star center. So half double crochet into each of the next 7 stitches. At the end of your first row of each star point, you'll have 8 half double crochets in total. So that includes the one that you worked into the same stitch that you single crocheted out of, or I should say that you chained out of, plus 7. So you have 8 half double crochet stitches to start. That's the base of each star point. Chain 1, turn your work, and half double crochet into each of those 8 stitches all the way back. The end of row 2 of each star point, you'll still have 8 stitches or 8 half double crochets. Chain 1, turn your work. Row 3 of each star point begins with a half double crochet 2 stitches together. So I wrap, pick up a loop in the first stitch, and then just pick up a loop in the next stitch. So I end up with 4 big fluffy loops on my hook. Wrap and pull back through everything. That's a half double crochet 2 together. Half double crochet across the middle stitches until the last 2. And once you're left with the last 2 stitches, you're going to half double crochet those 2 together. There's a loop in the first one. That last half double crochet always kind of curls down the side of your work a little bit, so look for it. And now you'll be down to 6 stitches across. So you've half double crocheted at the beginning, or 2 together at the beginning and the end of that row, and now you've got 6 stitches. Chain 1, turn, and for row 4 of each star point, you just half double crochet all the way back. You'll still have 6 stitches. At the end of row 4 of each star point, you should still have 6 stitches. Chain 1, turn, and we're going to decrease again. Half double crochet the first 2 stitches together. Half double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So just normal half double crochets. And then half double crochet the last 2 stitches together. So now you're down to a stitch count of 4. Chain 1, turn your work, and half double crochet back across each of those 4 stitches. At the end of row 6 of each star point, you'll have 4 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. It's another decrease row, row 7. You're going to half double crochet the first 2 stitches together, and half double crochet the last 2 stitches together. Chain 1, turn your work, and half double crochet into each of those 2 stitches. That's the end of row 8. At the end of row 8 of each star point, you'll have 2 stitches, chain 1, turn your work, and for the final bit, you're going to half double crochet those last 2 stitches together. That leaves you a stitch count of only 1. There we go. And that's your first start point. Now you can snip your yarn and fasten off. And don't worry about weaving that in. You can either just leave it to the inside or work over top of it later, and I'll show you that when we get there. That's start point number 1. You're going to repeat that now 4 more times around your circle. So each start point, you're going to start with a slip knot on your hook. Pick up your star, Find the next unused stitch next to the star point you just worked, join with a slip stitch, and then chain 1 to begin. Chain 1, half double crochet into the same stitch that you joined your yarn in, and half double crochet into each of the next 7. Chain 1, turn your work, half double crochet all the way back. You'll still have 8 stitches at the end of row 2 of your star point. Chain 1, turn your work, and then begin decreasing. If you need to rewind and look at the first star point, then go ahead and do that. You want to work 4 more of these all the way around your star. And when we get to the end, I'll show you what to do next. Once you've finished your 5th star point, don't cut your yarn and fasten off because we're not quite done yet. And I'll show you what I mean on my other star here. We're going to single crochet a nice tidy little edge all the way around our entire star. It's going to make it a little wider, clean up the edges, and make it easier for us to sew both pieces together when it comes time to do that. So, there's no real rule here. You're going to chain 1 to begin, and then you're going to single crochet down the edge of your first star point. You're going to single crochet by picking up a little piece of the edge of the star as you go along. Try to, evenly distribute your single crochets and count as you go. You may end up working 9, 10, 11, even 12 single crochets down the edge of your star point. It doesn't matter, but you want to make sure you have that number in mind because that's the number you're going to try and work up and down both sides of every star point all the way around your star. That is going to make it easier to line them all up later. And when you have an even number running up and down both sides, it also won't pull or pucker your edges. So just work evenly down the first side of your star point, count them up, and then that's the number you want to try and work up and down each side. I've worked 10 single crochets down the side of my first star point, so I'm going to work 10 on every side going forward. When you get to the point in between each star point, you want to single crochet into the base of the star point that you've just come out of, and then start up the side of the next one. The only exception to that rule is right here at the very first one. This is probably where you started, and there might be a little extra stitch, or it might look like there's an extra stitch in between them. So you can just single crochet into that extra space and then start up the next star point side. So I'm going to work all the way up this side, single crocheting. I'm going to work 10 single crochets into it, and then I'll show you what to do when you get to each point. I've worked 10 single crochets up the next side of my next star point, and that brings me up to the very top. That's that one stitch we had left at the top of our star point. You're going to work 2 single crochets into that. So a nice little turning right up at the top, 2 single crochets into the top stitch of every star point, and then turn your work, and you can start to single crochet back down. You can work over your little short tails that were left after you fastened off, or you can just push them to the back. It doesn't matter, it's up to you. But remember, if you've worked 10 single crochets down and up your other sides, you want to make sure that you count 10 working down your every side actually. So 10, 11, 9, whatever your number wound up being, try to remember to work the same number up and down both sides. Work 1 single crochet in between, at the bottom, in between each of your star points, and work 2 single crochets into the top of every star point. And that's it. I'll let you guys finish single crocheting around the entire edge of your star, and then we'll put them together. When you get all the way back up to the top of the first star point that you began on, make sure you work those 2 single crochets into the top point and then join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet. So not the chain one you made, but the actual first single crochet. Now if this is your first side, you can leave a long, maybe even the rest of the ball, whatever you've got left, leave that tail and then just fasten off. You can pull the whole thing all the way through. So pull up on your loop, grab all that yarn and pull it through to make a knot and fasten off. If you've already made two, like I've got here, then you don't need a long tail on your second one. So you can snip it off and just weave it in and save that yarn for another little project. So if you have only made one, go ahead and make number two, and then we're going to start sewing them together. Alright, once you've got your two star sides, you want to flip one upside down. So you can probably tell the right side up because they want to pucker out a little bit. Plus you'll see the nice side of your stitching for your single crochet border. If you flip it over, it'll pucker sort of outwards to the front, and your single crochet border will have the little bumpy bits across the top. So that's the wrong side. You want one wrong side up and one right side up, and you're going to put them both together. And then you should have a nice long tail left on one of them. Find the end of all that yarn. Hopefully you won't need it all, but you want to make sure you don't run out. Grab your big-eyed yarn needle and squish that bit of yarn through it. Alright, these are going to be some long stitches to start with. You're going to pair up your two sides so that your edges are together, and then you're just going to sew through each set of stitches all the way down. So my first stitch is going to go through, I'm going to just pick up the stitch that's obviously on the opposite side, so nice and neatly everything matches up. I'm going to go through that stitch there, and I'm just going to pull this yarn for 5 minutes. This is such a long stitch. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing all the way down. So I'm going to keep lining up my edges. So I'm going to find the two bottom, the bottom parts, or the bottom stitches between each set of star points, and always kind of hold them together, and then look back and pick up the next set. And now it's always good to just sort of eyeball this as you go along in case you've got one extra or one less stitch running down one side versus the other. That way if you end up with a couple of extra stitches, you can either just sew through the same stitch twice or skip one. It's not really going to show because these stitches are close together, and these the seams aren't going to, they're not going to really have holes in the seams. So you don't really have to worry about your stuffing coming out. So just pause every once in a while, make sure it's still lined up corner to corner, top to top, and then pick up the next set of stitches and sew through the whole thing. And you're going to do this, I'd say, almost all of the way around until I get through about 3 solid star points, and then we're going to start stuffing our star pillow. Okay, I have completely sewed all the way around 3 of my star points, and I have one side of each of the last 2 left, and that leaves me with the whole bottom of the star open. So now I'm going to start stuffing my star, and what you're going to do is take little bits of stuffing and focus on the point. So you're going to stuff each star point at a time, and you want to get all of your stuffing right up into the top point. The nice thing about working with big squishy stretchy yarn is that you can get your whole hand in there. Take little bits at a time and stuff it up into the top. Don't overstuff it. You don't want to be able to like see your stuffing through your little spaces. Just stuff in enough that it feels solid. And that's all you need to do to stuff it. Just work your way around through those first 3 points. And once you've got the 3 points stuffed, you can work on the middle. Bring it down a little bit to here, and then we're going to sew down this side, finish stuffing this star point, and then a little bit more in here, and we're going to stuff and stitch the last little bit closed together. But until we get to that point, just focus on stuffing your first 3 star points and the center, and then we'll move on. Alright, I stuffed all 3 points of my star plus the middle, and I kept flipping it over to make sure it was nice and even on both sides. Then I stitched up the inside of that second last star point, and I reached around from in here and I stuffed that point completely. I added some more stuffing to the middle of both sides, and now I'm going to slowly stuff the inside of my last star point, and I'm going to stitch it up as I go. So as I add a little bit of stuffing, I'm going to stitch it up as it gets nice and chubby. So this way you can still kind of control how much stuffing is going into your pillow. Make sure that it's still nice and even as it goes, and you can just continue that little method until you're all done. Once you're all stitched up, the last thing you want to do is make a simple little knot through those last couple of stitches. So I just like to run it through the same pair of stitches that I just ran it through, and then make a simple knot. Now this chenille stuff, especially if you're using this Bernay baby blanket yarn, is really grabby. So one little tiny knot is going to not undo. And then you can snip your yarn, leave a little bit of tail left, grab your needle, rethread it, and then just weave it back and forth through some of those stitches just to make sure that it doesn't want to unravel. So I'm grabbing some of those stitches right across the front of the star. Don't pull too tight because you don't want to pull it out of alignment. And then so hop over top, it's a heavy pillow, hop over top of the last stitch you came out of and go back up through some of those other stitches. You can go back and forth a couple times, and then once you're done, you can just poke your needle into the entire stuffed pillow here, so right into the inside of the pillow. Try to avoid your stuffing. And then pull it out somewhere, and you can keep doing that until all of your yarn is sort of tucked into your pillow. And if you've got any excess, you can trim it. There. Whew, that's big. I better zoom out for a bigger shot.
It is almost 20 inches tall. Now that is a proper pillow if you ask me. I hope you guys had fun making this along with me today, and we want to send out a special thank you to everyone who has popped into our Etsy shop recently and done some shopping. We really appreciate your support of our show, and it helps us out. That is it for this week, everybody. I hope to see you very soon on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, shine like a star, and have an awesome week. Bye!